going to go now to Charles Coleman Jr., former Brooklyn, New York prosecutor, now civil rights lawyer and MSNBC legal analyst, and a good friend to us. So here's the question, Charles. Are you convinced Pam Bondi, again, Trump's pick for AG, will operate with the independence we should expect from that office? Will she push back if Trump wants her to go against DOJ regulations and bury the special counsel report?
Alex, to answer all of those questions, the answer is no. We've seen this movie before and we know how it ends. We can expect very little from Pam Bondi except for doing exactly what Donald Trump wants her to do. As you have already talked about, the Office of the Attorney General, the Department of Justice, is supposed to be an independent law enforcement arbiter that basically makes sure that the law is upheld. And I don't necessarily know that under a Pam Bondi regime, if you will, that the Department of Justice is going to do that because of the immense pressure that I would expect Donald Trump is going to put on her. Now, I will say this. As an attorney, Pam Bondi is incredibly qualified and very much so accomplished. And so I don't necessarily anticipate that she will push things beyond the legal limits of the law. But when you talk about a slant and an agenda, that will absolutely be something that comes from the 47th president.
Okay, good you distinguish with those, because she does have a reputation, as you described there. So as early as today, we could potentially see Volume 1 of Jack Smith's report concerning Trump's efforts to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election. But the debate over the timing of the investigation, that is raging on. In fact, here's what a former DOJ spokesman told our colleague Jonathan Capehart yesterday. Take a listen.
It's important for the historical record that it comes out. Absolutely. But it's also important to rebut this narrative that DOJ was dragging its feet on investigating Donald Trump early on.
What were they doing during this period in 2021 when people like me and many other people were begging them to take notice of an extraordinary attempt to remain in power by President Trump?
If somebody came into my office, a reporter, and said, Anthony, we're going to report on XYZ about a grand jury proceeding, I couldn't even confirm the mere existence of a grand jury.
Is the criticism of the DOJ fair?
No, it's not fair, but at the same time, it's to be expected because in today's society, in today's world, we are used to having access to all things information at all times. And what people have to understand is that the DOJ operates differently, and most law enforcement agencies, particularly around investigations, operate at a different pace and with different rules and regulations. So there's nothing that the DOJ did that was wrong. But I believe my colleague Anthony Coley was correct in that clip because he pointed out the fact that the historical record matters. And when you're talking about an administration that is potentially keen on narrative control, as well as Donald Trump just as an individual with respect to his multitude of platforms, it's really important for the historical record that the public know the truth now that they can know it.
Okay, I want to take a look at a blemish on our history, which is the DOJ also releasing a new report on the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. It is the first full official government account of this horrible event, whose history, by the way, is not taught in schools. One official cited its magnitude, barbarity, racist hostility, and its utter annihilation of a thriving Black community. Charles, first remind us what happened there and why this report is important.
The Tulsa Massacre, Alex, was the result of essentially a race riot in Tulsa, Oklahoma that occurred after a number of different series of events led to it. It led to buildings being burned down, businesses being ruined, people losing their lives, and ultimately communities, a thriving community that was commonly known as Black Wall Street, essentially being burned to the ground by a number of white mobsters and looters who were mad because they had lost a previous fight outside of a police station. This is a whole long story that goes with it historically. This is one of the worst examples of what America is. And when I say that, I'm referring to the notion that you have a thriving Black community of professional people who are ultimately living and striving to, in the midst of segregation, in the midst of Reconstruction, the American dream. They are building their own businesses. They are knee-deep in respectability. There is not anything that can be said about this community that is nefarious, malicious, or illegal. And yet and still, they were not able to live amongst themselves, to thrive amongst themselves, and to feed and provide for their families without outside influences, not only burning them down, not only savagely brutalizing them, but then also in most instances, not ever being held accountable. And so this is a very important point in American history that many people are not aware of. But unfortunately, Tulsa is not the only one. There are several other communities across America that have had this similar thing happen. And it is a shame that in today's world, these are things about America that we still do not know.
I'm going to leave it right there. You said it beautifully. Thank you very much, Charles Coleman. We'll see you again.